Okay, so this one is going to be absolutely fraught with danger. There is no subject more guaranteed to get people's ire up than discussing the current state of WoW and future gazing into the next expansion. However, I've never been one to be shy to put my own views forward, even though I do like to think that I take other people's views into account, but everybody says that, don't they? The thing that really got me thinking about this was the surprise that Blizzard's recent announcement seemed to generate. Onto the release of Legion first. Blizzard have said that Legion will launch after the Warcraft movie. Well, no shit, Sherlock. The film comes out in early June. We're not even in Legion beta yet. So anyone who is in alpha or following alpha will know that this game is far from release ready. And as such, I really don't understand how anybody could have seriously been of the view that this expansion would come out before or even during June. Even before this announcement, I don't understand. Why would you think that? So when you consider that Legion could launch any time between July and September, they've said it'll be no later than somewhere towards the back end of September. I'm hoping for a July release for more than one reason, personally, from a personal point of view. You can't help but then get onto that other emotive subject, which is the state of World of Warcraft right now, as it is in live. And it of course means that the first major content patch of the current expansion will have been out for over a year before the next expansion. Now, this isn't exactly anything new. We've been used to that for the last couple of expansions, really, haven't we? But to throw petrol onto this fire of public discontent, or player discontent, shall we say, Blizzard keep telling us that they want to have shorter expansions. So does that mean less time between the expansions? That's what I would have thought. Apparently not. What they actually mean is they want to spend less time developing them, but they want us to play them for as long. I mean, this expansion, Warlords of Draenor, when it finishes, actually finally finishes, I will have had content to do for about half of the full duration of the expansion. In fact, possibly a little less. Now, touching on raiding for a moment, which is my raison d'etre for playing the game in the first place, absolutely baffles me that Blizzard keep rushing the pace of raiding when it releases, when an expansion releases, and then they string it out at the end. So, I mean, instead of 2 weeks until the raid opens, why not make it a month? If you know you're going to have this huge dead time at the end of the expansion, I mean, if you had plenty of content, you could imagine, yes, it's good for the player base, keep them interested, get content out quicker and quicker and quicker. But when you know you're going to have a year's dead time, and they know they were going to have a year's dead time, because this has been the case for the last few years. So, yeah, why not increase the amount of time at the start of the expansion before they release the raids? If Legion is going to have all the content that WoD was so badly lacking in, then even raiders like myself should have enough to occupy us. Really, shouldn't we? When you look at the stuff that we can see in Alpha now, and the stuff that they said is going to be coming at BlizzCon, which we can't see yet, but they said is coming, if all that's in there, we should have plenty to do. I mean, when Blackrock Foundry released, there were only so many guilds that even killed Mythic Margok. I mean, I think my guild had only been killing it for a few weeks. They didn't even release it with 6.1. 6.1 came out later. And 6.1, of course, is called a content patch, but it became famous as the selfie patch because it didn't bring anything. It brought the selfie camera, which is awesome, by the way. I decry anyone to say that's not awesome, but that's all it was. It was not a major content patch. Blizzard even had to say later on, you know, they shouldn't have called it a content patch. And I see, from my point of view, I thought, well, you know, Blackrock Foundry, if they'd have brought Blackrock Foundry out at the same time, not only would that have been content, even though it's content they developed before, but it would have come out at the same time. No one could have said there was no content with it, and it would have meant another few weeks of people being able to do what they can in Highmore, because there was only, what, I don't even know, a few hundred guilds had finished Highmore. They really have to rush it out after that much. I mean, I know for the higher, faster paced progress raiders, yeah, they want the new content. But they're not going to kick up there's only a few hundred of those anyway, so they're not going to kick up a massive fuss if you delay the release of a new raid by a few weeks. But for the thousands of others, surely that would be a much better thing, because they're still progressing on it. And that, in the grand scheme of things, if you just add another couple of weeks on at the start, add a few more weeks before you bring out the second raid, you might have been able to. They might have been able to release like Hellfire Citadel a good 2 or even 3 months later than they did, and that might suit some people as well, because a lot of people were moaning about the fact that Hellfire Citadel came out in summer. I mean, my holiday interfered with it. I lost a week on there myself. Other people lost time on it as well. I mean, it should, in theory, horrify progress raiders like myself to talk about gaps between content being stretched out like that. But put it this way, would you rather have a few extra weeks gap between content, or do you want it put right together, all the slack all together, right at the end of expansion, lasting over a year? I don't think anyone wants that. Now, I'm not saying I want to be progressing right up until the launch of the new expansion. When we talk about we want lots of content, we don't mean we want to be progressing right up until the death. Because a bit of a break is nice from progress. A few months is nice. It's good to have time to beta test as well. But if Legion launches in July, and that could be an optimistic estimate, then I will have had a break from progress for over 9 months. You can fire off a baby in that time. And what about people who don't raid? Or at least don't raid seriously? They could argue that they've finished their content for WoD within about 2 months. Because there hasn't been anything non-raid wise since launch, really, has there? What has there been? The shipyard. I wouldn't try suggesting that as content for people. And the Tanan jungle, which just brought with it more Apexis dailies. Yes, okay, you could get, you can. It's a good way of gearing up. You can get your baleful gear, get your Apexis crystals. There's even a bit of an in-joke about that in the Legion Alpha. Even Cadgaz going, oh no, we don't need Apexis crystals anymore. Yeah, and you could upgrade your gear to 695 for those who don't raid or don't get it any other way. But there has been no actual content since launch. There's no new dungeons. All right, they've done mythic dungeons, which is just the same dungeons, a bit harder. You got time walking dungeons, fair enough, but again, that's just dungeons that already existed. I think time walking dungeons have been a good inclusion, but is it really new content? It's not what people would call new content. So there hasn't actually. So for people who don't raid, there hasn't been new content. So they could have burnt through everything in the first couple of months and just come back now and then to do looking for raid if they're really all that interested in it. So it's no wonder that Blizzard don't announce subscriber numbers anymore. I mean, this announcement took place at a time, it was the quarterly announcement, at a time when traditionally subscriber numbers were given. They said before they're not going to do this anymore. I mean, you can see why. Why would they? They're a successful company financially, and they're doing well, and they're able to report financial success. Why talk about subscriber numbers? Why talk about anything that is bad news? And granted, people talk a lot of nonsense about subscriber numbers. Whenever they came out, people would pull entirely incorrect numbers out of their arse about how many numbers have been lost. And then they would say, and it's all because of this thing that I don't like about the game, and there's my proof. I am right, everyone else is wrong, and here's my proof. Subscriber numbers went down. And they went down, all those subscribers left because of the reason that I am not happy about. You get an awful lot of rubbish talked. But one thing is a fact, and that there are millions fewer actively playing WoW now than at any time since its first year of release. And it's not that it's been a steady decline. You expect a steady decline. The game has been out for a long time now. It's amazing that it has carried on at the pace it has for as long as it has, that it is still head honcho in terms of players. But I would say it was a steady decline. across. I mean, it reached its peak in Wrath, and then it declined. Declined in Cataclysm, declined in Marp, not massively. But the numbers have now plummeted, even without knowing what they are now. We know they haven't picked up since the last time. The last time they were reported, it was like 5 million odd. We know that number won't have gone up. It can only have gone down because there hasn't been anything new to draw players back. So, yeah, it's been plummeting, absolutely plummeting. And another thing that Blizzard keeps telling us is there's never been a bigger team working on Legion. And that they've been working on it in tandem with Warlords of Draenor. You know, there was this thing at the time, they decided, you know, they could have gone one, could have gone the other. And I think they went with Warlords of Draenor first because I think it's because of the Warcraft movie. It ties in better with the Warcraft movie. And they wanted... the Warcraft movie has itself been delayed. So I think that's the reason for that. But they said they could have gone with either. So Legion has been worked on with a parallel team, still run by the same lead. I mean, Celestin, I think, is still like the lead developer. And they've got the same managers in charge, I think, but different teams working on them. So they must have been working on Legion for a good long time now. Must be a good couple of years at least. Now, if that's the case, where are the fruits of this labour? Now, don't get me wrong. What's currently in alpha is very encouraging. But that's all it is at the moment, encouraging. With what we've been told, and the amount of time they must have been spending on it, surely we should be into beta by now. It should be almost done. It should just need polish or maybe slight changes in direction based on player feedback. We are now 6 weeks into the year in which it releases. And we're still in alpha. We're still with some specs not playable and some zones not accessible. And, you know, so again, I come back to my first point. How on earth did people ever think this was going to come out in June? It was not feasible. It's just not ready. It's not there. And although the build we see in alpha, okay, fair enough, that's not necessary. Yeah, there might be a load of content that is sort of ready and could be tested if they wanted to release it. You know, the alpha builds are not the current state of things from the developer's point of view. But I see no reason at this point for us not to be able to go into all the different zones, even if the artwork isn't all done, and the artwork isn't all done. And to be able to play all the specs. I mean, how is that not done? There's so many basic things just not done. I would think, if we're going to get a summer release, that the state we should be in now is that it should basically be done. There'll be artwork not finished. There'll be bugs in it. They'll be wanting to focus on raid and class tuning is where I think they should be now. I do not think that mechanical aspects of the game or you know, quest aspects or zones or anything like that should still be being worked on, other than tweaking based on player feedback. But that is where we are. We've got a few zones where, you know, we can quest fully. They're absolutely fine. There's bugs in them. We report the bugs and hope they get seen to. They don't always. But, you know, nothing major. You know, the servers are unstable, but, you know, alpha and even beta itself, that happens. That's just one of those things. I don't know. And whenever people try and say, oh, I think it'll be ready for this, and they're just making it up, because I've got to say, at the point we're in now, and also given how long they say they've been working on this, I struggle to even think it'll be ready for this year. But of course it has to be. They have committed themselves to it being towards the, you know, just past mid-September at the latest, and they're not going to work up to that time. Realistically, they'll probably have been thinking to themselves when they announced that date, okay, July maybe, and if there's something awkward comes up, it gives us an extra month or so grace, is probably what they're thinking about. So I do still think July and August, which still could work out well for me as a teacher. You know, I get time off in summer. I get a good 6 weeks off. If it happened to coincide with the start of that 6 weeks, for me personally, that would be great. For other players, I can imagine it not being great. I know a lot of people were not very happy about Hellfire Citadel coming out in summer, for example. So what do you think they're going to think about an entire expansion coming out in summer? I just don't know. So it's great for me, not so great for other people. And again, I would just say to Blizzard, they're not going to watch this, but, you know, if you know you're going to have this dead time at the end of an expansion, string out the rest of the content. Get the content to fit the expansion. Now, you've got to come at that from two ends. One is you have got to have more content. Legion may have more content. I've not seen anything yet that tells me that Legion is going to be as piss poor as Warlords of Draenor when it comes to non-raid content. But you've also got to think to yourself, I feel rushed at the start of an expansion. Now, of course, I feel rushed because I'm a raider, and there's lots to do as a raider. But I feel rushed. Why are you making us feel rushed? I can understand getting the rush in if you've got enough content to last the expansion. But when you don't, when you've got a full year, at least, and a year's an arbitrary number, it's actually more than a year. When it's over a year, when you're not going to be putting anything new into the game, you do not need to rush us. More time at the beginning, more time between raid tiers. Never mind me, I might, raiders on my level of progress might well moan about bigger gaps between the raid tiers themselves, but sodders were only a few hundred. Worry about the tens of thousands of others who are still progressing when you bring out a new raid tier. Okay, we don't want to get the high progress ones really bored, but at the same time, if you've got the content to do outside of those raids, that shouldn't be a massive issue, should it? And I just hope that Blizzard come to this conclusion themselves. As I say, they're not going to watch this, but I hope they come to this conclusion themselves and really do change things around. But I've lost all belief that they will, because when we had this huge lead into Mists of Pandaria in Cataclysm, and this huge long time dead time at the end of Cataclysm, I thought to myself, they're not going to do this again, because, I mean, this was a disaster. And then it happens in MoP as well. And I thought to myself, oh my God, they've done it again. And now it's happening in WoD again. So no part, even though I think to myself, it is baffling that they would do this, it's not even like they're getting away with it, because the number of people playing is plummeting unnecessarily. So they know that it's not just they're getting away with it. But the fact that they've done it 3 expansions on the bounce and not got away with it, even though they've got away with it far less in this one, just makes me think that they're actually not capable. Someone at Blizzard who could have a role that could sort this out is not effective in that role. And I think it's as simple as that. But anyway, that's enough rambling. Let me know what you think. What are your fears? When do you think it's going to come out? But why? And but no one really knows. Blizzard don't even know, do they? and again, what content have you actually been able to do if you've not been raiding? What have you been able to do if you're still playing it? Are you still playing it? Did you just play it for a couple of months? One of those people that played it for a couple of months and went, right, is that it then? We're done. I'll be back in Legion. Or we didn't know it was Legion then. But anyway, until I get round to doing a few more alpha videos when the servers come back up, I'll see you later.